April 1985, Boston. A 35-year-old man walks into a bar carrying a leather briefcase, not papers inside, bottles. He sets it on the counter, pulls out a beer with no label anyone recognizes, and asks the bartender for exactly one thing, a taste. Most say no. He thanks them. Walks to the next bar, same briefcase, same beer. His name is Jim Koch. 6 months earlier, he was pulling a 6-figure salary at one of the top management consulting firms on earth. Now he's pouring samples out of a suitcase using a family beer recipe older than the light bulb. The question isn't whether that gamble paid off. It's how a recipe from a dead man's kitchen, carried by a consultant with no brewery, no bottling line, and no distributor, became the company that built an entire industry almost by itself. By the end of this story, that briefcase becomes a company worth billions of dollars. And the beer inside it becomes so successful, it forces an entire industry to rewrite its own rulebook just to keep this man's company inside the club he helped create. Hold on to that idea. The rulebook. It comes back at the very end of this story, and it's the strangest twist in the whole thing. The recipe itself came from a man named Louis Koch, Jim's great-great-grandfather, a German immigrant here. In your beer peer in einem fraternity here, the Rewrote, 1860s. It was never a business plan. It was a family document, handed down for over a century, tucked away long after Prohibition shut down most small American breweries for good. By the 1980s, American beer meant exactly two things, light and lighter. Anheuser-Busch and Miller controlled the shelves. The word craft beer barely existed as a phrase, let alone a category people shopped for. Jim Koch had a Harvard undergraduate degree, then a joint law and business degree from Harvard as well. He'd spent years at the Boston Consulting Group, advising other companies on strategy for a living, while quietly unhappy doing it. In interviews since, Koch has described the moment plainly. He had his family's old recipe, a decent chunk of savings, and a growing sense that he'd rather fail at something of his own than keep succeeding at someone else's plan. So in 1984, he quit. Here's the part most people get wrong. When they picture this story, Jim Koch never built a brewery. He couldn't afford one. Instead, he struck a contract with the Pittsburgh Brewing Company, the maker of Iron City beer, to brew his recipe using their existing equipment and spare capacity. No factory, no capital investment, just a handshake deal and a truck route. He named the beer after Samuel Adams, the Revolutionary War figure known to most Americans as a patriot, and, by some accounts, a maltster who worked in his family's malting business. Whether Samuel Adams himself was ever much of a brewer is genuinely disputed by historians. Koch picked the name anyway for what it symbolized, rebellion against the two companies that owned American beer. Now here's the turn almost nobody remembers correctly. 6 months after Koch started walking into bars with his briefcase, he entered his beer into the Great American Beer Festival in Denver, Colorado, 1985, its very first. Year holding a blind consumer tasting poll, Samuel Adams Boston Lager won, voted by the tasters in the room that day the best beer in America. Koch put that phrase on every bottle, every ad, every sales pitch for years afterward. The best beer in America, a one-afternoon blind tasting at a festival still finding its footing, became the single most repeated marketing line in craft beer history. Beer writers and rival brewers eventually pushed back, arguing it was misleading to keep running a permanent claim off one small, early competition. Koch never stopped using it. And it worked. Bar by bar, city by city, Samuel Adams started showing up on tap where it had never been welcome before. By the early 1990s, Boston Beer Company was one of the fastest-growing beverage companies in the country. But growth exposed the very thing Koch had built the company to hide. His bottles said brewed in Boston. His beer, mostly, was not brewed in Boston. It came out of contract breweries, first in Pittsburgh, later in Cincinnati, Ohio, through the Hudepohl Schoenling Brewing Company. Critics and competing brewers accused Boston Beer of letting customers believe something that wasn't quite true. that their lager came from a small Boston operation, not a rotation of large, out-of-state industrial plants. Koch defended the practice as ordinary contract brewing, common across the industry. But the accusation stuck to the brand for years. Was Samuel Adams really a craft brewer or a marketing company that happened to sell beer? Then came November of 1995, and Koch made a decision that would define his reputation for the rest of his career. Boston Beer Company went public, but not the usual way. Koch put an offer directly on Samuel Adams' six-packs, mail in a coupon, and everyday beer drinkers could apply to buy shares before big institutional investors even got a look. Tens of thousands of ordinary customers responded. It was framed at the time as radically democratic. Wall Street opened up to the people who'd actually built the brand by drinking it. But alongside the company's new shares, Koch also sold a portion of his own personal stake in that same offering, netting himself tens of millions of dollars directly from the pockets of the very customers who trusted the name on the bottle. Some financial journalists at the time called it uncomfortable, even if it was entirely legal. A founder cashing out to the same beer drinkers he'd spent a decade building loyalty with? And in the following year, as craft beer flooded with new competitors and enthusiasm cooled, Boston Beer's stock lost a significant share of its early value. Some of those coupon clipping investors were sitting on losses. Koch stayed. The company kept growing anyway, which springs the this story. By around 2011, Boston Beer Company was producing beer at a scale nobody in the so-called craft beer world had ever reached, closing in on and threatening to cross the 2 million barrel a year ceiling that the industry's own trade group, the Brewers Association, used to officially define what counted as a craft brewer. Cross that line under the existing rule, and Samuel Adams, the company that had helped invent the entire category, would be legally reclassified as something else, not craft, just big beer. So the Brewers Association rewrote its own definition. It raised the production cap from 2 million barrels a year to 6 million, a change widely understood in the industry as designed specifically to keep Boston Beer Company inside the club it had built from a briefcase and a family recipe 26 years earlier. The company that had been small enough to need that identity had become too big for its own definition to hold. That's the answer to the question from the cold open. The briefcase worked so completely that the entire industry had to bend its own rules around what Jim Koch's company had become. Today, Boston Beer Company, ticker symbol SAM, is valued in the billions of dollars, selling Samuel Adams alongside brands like Truly and Twisted Tea. Jim Koch remains chairman. The lesson sitting underneath all of it isn't really about beer. It's that Koch's success was never the recipe alone. Louis Koch's 1860s formula sat unused for generations. It was one consultant's willingness to personally carry that recipe, bottle by bottle, into bars that had every reason to say no. And here's the detail Koch has mentioned in interviews that most coverage of this story leaves out entirely. He still says the original handwritten family recipe isn't framed on some office wall for tourists. By his own account, it's kept locked away, the same way a family keeps a will or a deed. Not a museum piece. A private paper from a man who never lived to see what it became. The Brewers Association's rulebook wasn't the first one rewritten to accommodate a small brewer who got too big. 2 decades before Koch quit his consulting job, a young heir named Fritz Maytag bought a nearly bankrupt San Francisco brewery for a few $1,000s, just to keep it from disappearing. That's a different beer and a very different story.